Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow a great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite. Investment advisor, girl boss, boy mom. Those words can be used to describe the authentically real Nina O'Neill, partner and investment advisor with Archer Investment Management in Raleigh, North Carolina. You can also add the word contributing author to the best-selling book, How I Invest My Money. Finance experts reveal how they save, spend, and invest by Joshua Brown, Brian Portnoy, illustrated by Carl Richards, and published in November 2020. Days after the time of this broadcast, Nina was named to Investment News 2020 Women to Watch list and Investopedia's 100 top financial advisors for 2020. Even during the pandemic, it appears Nina O'Neill is busier than ever as a mom with her young sons Lo and Emmett at baseball games and then working as a financial advisor, making an occasional TV guest appearance on CNBC talking about managing portfolio risk. Nina is also the founder and organizer of the Female Advisor Network, a national membership organization dedicated to empowering female financial advisors. It's something Nina is extremely passionate about, especially when it comes to young women and students. Female Advisor Network offers a student membership for low cost while providing them with networking opportunities and internships. Nina is also host of The Juggle is Real, a video series with Investment News. She candidly shares the unique challenges of working parents. But all kidding aside, she's a writer on practice management and industry topics for Financial Planning magazine. Nina's also been featured as a commentator in Investment News, U.S. News and World Report, The Washington Post, On Wall Street, Bank Investment Consultant, Investors Business Daily, The Street, CityWire, RIA Magazine, Wealth Management, and so much more. One of the many gifts you'll discover about Nina O'Neill is that she's not afraid to act boldly, which has been her network's superpower. From her first Excel conference in 2001 to meeting Ron Carson himself years later. Since that time, Nina has built a vast network of male allies and mentors that have changed her life forever. Industry icons like Aaron Klein and Josh Brown, and close friends like Dr. Daniel Crosby and Matt Ackerman. What Nina O'Neill teaches us is that in order to build strong networks, you will have to make it happen by introducing yourself and being real in the suite. Wow, Nina O'Neill, take a seat in the suite. It's so great to have you here today. I'm so excited for this show. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's so good to see you. You've been a friend of mine for a while now, and I'm excited to be on your podcast.
So one of the things that I didn't tell you, Nina, is that guess where I am right now? I am in Southport, North Carolina.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
right?
Why are you there?
Because my aunt is here, and my mother is the oldest of 9 children, and she only has one sister. That's my aunt here in North Carolina, and we're actually visiting. So we took a road trip last Saturday, and so I said, of all the days, is this not incredible that I am interviewing Nina O'Neill in her state?
Right. So, very ironic, but you're in a great spot. Southport's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and we played 9 holes of golf at Oak Island over the weekend, and I just love it here. I mean, North Carolina is an amazing state, and where you were.
It here too.
Oh, I know. Look, you're a graduate of University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You are partner and investment advisor at Archer Investment Management. And I think the last time that we saw each other personally was, I remember that we were riding in a bus. It was the Riskalyze conference, and we were on our way to like a dude ranch somewhere, right?
Yep.
And so you are featured. I see you everywhere. You are a sought out national thought leader. You're a commentator on news topics. I saw you not too long ago on CNBC. You are named one of the investment news under 40. And so you're also to one of the 2018 Triangle Business Journal 40 under 40 professionals. You serve as investment news participant for their think tank, as well as Fidelity's think tank, Future of the Financial Services Industry. You are also a mom to two adorable, adorable boys, really handsome young men.
They are definitely the most important thing that I've done, for sure.
And one of your most proudest accomplishments, I'm sure, Nina.
Without question. Which
is, why I think a lot of women relate to you here in the suite. And so let's talking about Lo and Emmett and being a mom and juggling everything. You have an awesome series on investment news called The Juggle is Real, in which you really share real struggles in such a comical way. It's so funny because as I see that you're standing there getting ready to talk on video, then you break out and you say something, you have this dry humor about you. It's so right on. It's so spot on. But you remind us that there's no perfect family. There's no perfect situation. And of all the times to be juggling right now during a pandemic, I wanted to hear from you. What's been going on with the juggling since the pandemic? You're really juggling now.
Yeah, I feel like there have been phases of this pandemic, right? There was like the major quarantine where it was a very, very fearful and confusing time, but we thought it was going to be a short time. Now that this has gone longer, so we're in November now, it's been several months. So the juggle in the beginning was a lot more mental because physically we weren't doing anything. We were just at home. We weren't rushing from, school to baseball to the office, from client meeting to client meeting. Suddenly everything was that I felt like I was juggling was extremely mental and emotional. And it's trying to keep my business in a looking positively, keep my team positive, keep everybody, kind of keep the wheels on the bus, make sure the things are getting done that need to get done, talking to clients about things that, were concerning or confusing or issues with their business where they had to shut down and they were having absolutely no revenue, especially like restaurant owners. And then for me personally, just being really afraid of what was going on and trying to, not let my anxiety and emotions kind of bleed through, because your kids can feel it. And so I sort of, at the very beginning of the quarantine, I realized that I had to accept that I couldn't handle all of this and probably get through it without some sort of mental breakdown. Because my kids are 6 and 9. So I was suddenly having to teach kindergarten and second grade. And that's not a screen situation. That's a very difficult virtual situation. And so I went to my business partner and said, I have to adjust my responsibilities on this team right now. My daytime hours have to be focused on 8 to 3, making sure the kids are staying on track with their education because they can't self-direct. They're too little. I have to work them through their worksheets and their assignments and be in tune with their teachers and making sure they're getting on these virtual, classroom times. And so I said, but what I can do is I can pivot. If you can just make sure you're running the client side requests and whatever, I think we need to up our marketing. And you're the social media guru, but I knew that we were a firm that was built on face-to-face personal relationships and interactions. And I saw that was probably not happening in the near future, and that we already had a social media presence and a digital presence, that we needed to make that even bigger. And so I got on a team call and said, Matt and I, my business partner's name is Matt, but Matt and I have discussed, we're going to shift some responsibilities around between the two of us. And I laid out what that looked like and what my new availability was. And I said, and we're going to go, I have a marketing person. And I said, Claire and I are going to do 3 times more marketing than we had planned from a digital standpoint. And so we were doing our own content. We utilized Snappy Kraken, FMG, and Lead Pilots. So we have, and
Wow.
some Carson group coaching. So we utilize a lot of other content, but we do create our own. And so I had a lot of media opportunities this summer as well, which gave us some things to be able to push out. But I got on the team call. I said, I think firms are going to take one, or financial advisors are going to take one of two directions, and I know which one we're going to take. They're going to put their head in the sand and hope this passes and just try to, muddle through, or we can be great. And we can really show our clients that we are here for them, that this is not a relationship just about money. It's about family. It's about your health, your whole life. And that's what we've said for 10 years. And in this nutty 11th year, we can really show them that we're more than just their financial advisor, and really try to be a leader for them during a very difficult time. And that was the attitude we took, and just tried to always provide a lot of education and provide a lot of, messaging around the emotions of what was going on. And just, I did a video every Friday, and my kids were usually in it, and stopped them in like the fall, or probably early fall, but it was every Friday, we're here for you. And there were some weeks where I just acknowledged, like, I'm having a really hard time. This is not a week that I had a great week. I had a hard time with, work balance. I was just very honest, and I've always been kind of unapologetically myself. And I think people appreciate that authenticity. And there were times when I really tried hard. I would email Claire and say, I don't really know what I can say this week that would be positive. And she and I would talk through maybe some silver linings that we could share. And so the juggle has been incredibly different this year. And the time home with my kids has been the best thing that could have possibly happened. We have been able to spend so much time together. And in the past, I would have been traveling a lot, or, definitely not at home with them every day for months. At the time, I would have been in the office, and they would have been at school or had a babysitter for the summer. So we really had some great memories from this year. It won't all be a black cloud, but the juggle, it definitely, it's still been there. It just took a huge change.
I just think it was so incredible how you had the series before one of the most defining times of our lives, and what a time to show up for your clients, for your family, being a mom. I give you a lot of credit. I'm a mother too. My kids are 22 months apart. And so the ages of 7 and 9, it was 7 and 9 or 6 and 9?
6 and 9.
Yeah, 6 and 9. 6 and 9. Those are really tough years. And what I see from you, and what I think that your clients see from you too, Nina, is that you are so real, and you aren't trying to sugarcoat it. And your kids are going to remember this time. And you've done now what I see is that your son is getting up to the plate, and he's hitting home runs. So whatever you're doing is it's really working, Nina.
Yeah, we had a big baseball year this year. My oldest son, he turned 9 in July, so he's just barely 9, but he played 33 baseball games since June. So
oh boy, wow.
He's a tournament. Sorry, that's not even his regular season from the spring. So he played 33 tournament games and won almost all of them. He's been, and then the little one is this week in the baseball playoffs for he's number one. His team is number 1 in the league. So he's very proud of it. He might get a trophy like Big Brother this week, we hope. So, but baseball's been a lifesaver this summer and fall. We just finished this week. We'll be done, but it has given them some sense of normalcy. Yeah. And, something that they are, succeeding at, and they're accomplishing, and it's great for them, socially, but it's also just super fun to watch them play.
You hit upon a really important point, and that is that sports remind us that life is somewhat back to normal. Even for me personally, I couldn't wait to hear the sound of Al Michaels and Chris Collingsworth on Sunday Night Football. Even just to hear their voice and to see people playing, it's amazing what role sports has had on our own psyche, whether or not that you're a child or an adult. And to your point, your kids and the people around you, even your clients, can sense whether or not that you're nervous or anxious. In the beginning, we all felt that. And that's what was so great about what you did, Nina, and just you being out there. You have an awesome Twitter handle. It's Nina O'Neill 5510.
N O'Neill 510. My birthday is May 10th.
So. Okay, great. Okay, so that's where that comes in. Okay, we'll obviously have that in the show notes. So now I want to pick up on what you just said about the marketing, about being able to double down, triple down, quadruple down, and that you had all of these different marketing channels working at one time. And again, you're a person that I see a lot in the feed. I see you in the news. You were also mentioned in Wall Street Journal just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Exactly. So can you share with us what is working right now for you?
Well, I don't think it's one specific thing. We've always said we do all of it. We just do it consistently. And I think that's the biggest thing that does work for you, is having consistency regardless of what platform you use. A lot of people, and I think there's this impression that you have to have your own podcast, you have to have your own blog, you have to create so much content. And I've been very vocal. I do the opposite. I just use everybody else's. Because you can be on, I love being a guest on, your podcast. I don't particularly want to do one on my own because I don't believe that right now I have the consistent ability to make it great.
Right.
And I don't want to have, anything. And so I've found it really useful for me. I said, instead of me stressing about always making my own content, there's so much out there that we can utilize and leverage, and then put our own maybe brand or flavor on some of it. I do some videos. I enjoy video. I do write some of our client email communication. I co-write it with Claire, that is our marketing person, but it's all one-offs. It's ad hoc. It's not, I have this blog or this, video series specifically. So we mix it up, and we use Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram a little bit we're getting into, but we have a corporate account, but then I have my own, and I go back and forth on them. I might share something from the company, but I will also have my own kind of voice. And I think that's important I've seen advisors utilize their company handles as their voice, and I don't think it goes through the same way. I think you kind of have to separate those out, is my opinion. Because when someone comes in to meet with us, a lot of times they already know a lot about myself or Matt, our company, our team. We try to put a lot of personal things out about us. We do a quarterly newsletter to our clients, and have for years, that starts with the beginning of the year, where we recap personally what happened the year before and kind of reflect on that. We start with, as a company, where we gave back to the community, if we moved or if something big happened with the company, if we got an award. And then each person kind of has their section of reflection from the year before. And then second, third, or the quarters after that, we do a shorter version of it. And so people get a really good feel for who we are at home in multiple ways. So unfortunately, I don't have the answer on what works the most, but I think you can't do all business. You have to add in some personal. And then I think it's important for advisors to have their own voice separate from their firm voice.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, and that is that you have to know what you're great at. And I want to share one of the pieces of content that you created in June of 2018, which is one of your most successful thought leader pieces. And then I want to draw everyone's attention there, because it is absolutely worth a read. And I'm quoting Nina here. I hope every man in the financial services industry reads this article. Very excited for the opportunity to share my experience as a female in financial services and my views on retaining women in financial planning. This was a phenomenal story, and it couldn't have happened at a better time. So to your point, know what really you're good at. Your content needs to align with who you are. And I think this is a perfect case study.
Thank you. Yeah. So if we go back to 2018, that was when the Me Too movement was really going on. And I had an editor. I was writing for Financial Planning magazine, and an editor there said, well, I think it's a good opportunity for you to write about Me Too. And I said, well, can we take it from a different direction? Because right now, men are getting bashed right and left for good reason, right? The Me Too movement, very valid, very big deal, really exposed a lot of people and is helping to move forward and get rid of some of the sexual harassment and discrimination that I personally have experienced in multiple ways, unfortunately, in our industry. And so I said, but some of my biggest champions and supporters have been men in financial services. And I'd rather shine the light on the good guys than keep showing the bad ones, because it's kind of like financial advisors. You see, in the news, somebody got, fined for fraud, and you're like, but that was just the one. There are so many great ones. And so I just decided, can we take a different spin on it? I think we need to focus on the ways that we can retain women in financial services, and that for men to know that they're the most critical role in that. I mean, it's even just down to the game of numbers. There's just more of them. And so I really wanted to direct the article more towards how to incorporate male relationships in your life, how men could help support this cause. And that I think in our industry, we talk about we've got to get more diversity and get more diversity. And I just got really sick of people talking about it. And I was like, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to write. Like, this is the way that you do it. There's a reason why I'm still here after all of my hurdles. It's because I've seen some of these things work for other people and for me. Some of the things that happened in 2018 kind of spurred me to think about creating a network for women. But it was not, in the beginning, it was not how it is now in my mind. It's incredibly bigger and just so exciting. But that some of that writing and some of that Me Too, and then some of the stories I was hearing, The Juggle is Real, like all of that kind of culminated to creating the Female Advisor Network in 2019.
We want to hear about it. There are women in the industry now. You have to be a financial advisor to join. The Female Advisor Network is a national membership organization for female financial advisors. And what I see that you're doing that is really cool, and that is that you're having these, obviously before COVID, right? But bringing women together for this, what I'll call this retreat style of having people interact in a way that I'm not a female financial advisor, but when I saw those pictures and I saw the video, I said, wow, that is really thoughtful. So tell us a little bit about who's joining the network right now, and a little bit more back to that genesis, because it's really hard.
So from 2018 to 2020, we also more than doubled our assets under management for our RIA. So
wow.
This was not a time for me. Like I had no extra time. I was doing this at like midnight, and I started with, I wanted to do a retreat. I'd been a go-to for women for years. I would randomly get emails or phone calls or LinkedIn messages saying, someone gave me your name. I still get it all the time, but
that's how we connected too, right? That's how we connected.
We connected through Aaron Klein at the Disrupt event in New York. Yeah, you were one of the town hall leaders. Yeah, so that's how I met you first, and then we connected online from there. So, but I wanted to do this retreat because I'd been to conference after conference, and which are great, and I love them. But I wanted something like, as I was hearing these women speak, they're having the similar experiences and stories, and a lot of it is just at the end of the day a feeling of exclusion and frustration. And so I was like, if we could create a little community where we could go for a weekend and spend time together in a space where we felt all included and it was comfortable, and no suits, no heels, like just a beautiful environment, and get very comfortable with sharing and then feeling like you've got a support system. So I was starting to plan the retreat, and I'd found the perfect space for it. We took over this entire inn that is outside of Atlanta. It's called the Inn at Serenbe, and it is a utopian, just incredibly, it's hard to explain. And I sent pictures to Claire that helps me run the marketing for the Female Advisor Network too. And I was like, I found it. And I was trying to explain it to her, but when she finally went for the weekend with me, she was like, it truly is undescribable. And every woman there was like, this place is just insane. And so it was a really perfect spot, but it bothered me because I thought 3 days, you could only have like 15 people. It was intended to be small, but there were only 15 rooms in this inn, or about 15, I remember. So the room size to do what we wanted to do was really about 15 people, was about as big as we wanted it to get for the first one. And so I thought 15 people over 3 days isn't fixing the industry. It's a noble thought, but it's not going to really do but so much. And that really bothered me because I thought it would be good, but it wasn't really accomplishing what I wanted to do and to help solve a problem. And so I literally one day just walked in the office and was like, pardon my French, I was like, screw it, we're going national. Like we're just going to do a whole network, membership network. I don't really know what it'll all entail, but here's the business plan I wrote last night, and sat down with my partner and kind of went through it, and then talked to, at the time, Claire wasn't quite working with me. No, she was interning with us, she wasn't full-time yet. So I kind of put her to helping me start to build out the programs and the website. And so now we have it's a little over a year old. We launched in April. I think membership opened the end of April last year. And so we have between 120 and 30 members across the country, all types of financial advisors. I love our member spotlight every Monday because it really shows all of our incredible members and what they've accomplished. And it's funny because there are a lot of the same kind of responses to these. We ask the same questions. And so there's a lot of similar responses. A lot of the women have had the same or some very similar experiences. And then one of the things that I really thought was important to have is to have a student membership.
Hats off to you. And it's a very affordable annual price, right? $49 the entire year.
Yeah. And the organization costs money to run. And my only hope was just not to lose money. We break even, but also enough money where people took it seriously, but not so much that it became a barrier to entry. Right. So I kind of researched other membership organizations and did just the financials on the company, just what it costs to host the website, to run these events, to do the things that I wanted to do. I just needed to look at what would make it pay for itself. So the student membership, I really felt like one of the issues, I do feel like one of the issues why we don't have as many women in financial services, or especially as financial advisors, is because I genuinely don't know that they know the job exists. I really didn't. I had heard of a stockbroker growing up, but the way that my job is today, I didn't know that type of job existed, where you're really advising someone on their whole life financially. And so I feel like the more students we can get exposed to the career, then that's going to in turn hopefully bring in more women. I think you just have to get to people younger. And we have on the closed-in member site, there's a membership directory. And so if you're a student, like in Raleigh, we have several universities. And if you're a student in Raleigh and you're a member, you're encouraged to reach out to anybody that you see in your area, ask them for coffee, see if there's internship opportunities, ask them for introductions, shadow for a day, but to really help younger women get to know what this job is and at least exposure to it. And I've had an internship program for 10 years for young women. They do a semester in college, and they're really focused on, they help with marketing and kind of office stuff, but I have them sit in on meetings. I have them get to know what this job is. And that's how Claire, that works with me, she interned for me for 18 months and ended up, when she graduated, we hired her full time. So it's also been a great way to find talent that you can kind of bring into your own culture and train yourself. And it's just been kind of a passion for me, for the younger women to see more of what a financial advisor is, and that women do it and they do it well.
Thank you for putting these examples also too. Thank you for sharing on social media, because one of the things that you and I have been trying to do is to be social on social and to give everyone a real life, a day in the life, to understand what it is like to actually work in the field. And I don't know about you, but almost every single person that I've hired here at the agency has not been from financial services. When it was in a traditional wealth management environment, I recruited people who were not from the industry. And so when they came to the industry, I find that a lot of light bulbs go off, especially with younger women They had no idea. They had no idea that cool people even worked in the industry.
Right.
And that, yes, and now we're starting to tell our stories on social media and Instagram and YouTube and video. And we're finally getting to reach the people we want to reach with the right message at the right time on the right medium.
Yeah. And I think that's where also kind of what I was saying before about you can't just have all business on your social feed. I mean, people want to know who you are as a person. I think that like, know, and trust factor is huge. And you need to be able to convey that digitally this day and time, especially with coronavirus. But I think it's important to have a sense of humor. I mean, I worked at a firm in New York we all took our jobs very seriously, but we genuinely had a good time doing it. And I managed $89 billion with 80 clients. And
Yeah.
I worked with boards and CFOs of these huge organizations. But we had a great relationship. We also were able to just, how was your weekend? And it wasn't just so sterile. And I really loved that work environment. And then I went to this wirehouse where it was a totally different culture. And I used to walk around going, there's no laughing. There's no laughing. And it was like everybody walked in, closed their door, saw a client or two, and then they walked out. And it was just such a different environment than what I had been used to and initially exposed to in financial services. And so I've always said at our firm, we do a great job and we have a good time. I mean, I want people that have a very hard work ethic, but I don't want them miserable at their jobs, because then you just burn out. And I'm with my work colleagues much more than I am my own little family and friends. And so I just think it's important to create a culture where you can have fun, but again, also do a good job. I was in this meeting, I don't know if I ever put this on social media. So I was in a meeting with two longtime clients and my business partner, and it was a couple. And the husband had already retired and he was a public speaker. So his income was kind of up in the air depending on what he was booked for that year. She had a great corporate job and they were very concerned about her retiring. Could they do it? But she had an offer for an early retirement. And I could tell that they were just so stressed. And then they started getting more and more tense together and kind of not arguing, but definitely kind of expectation was a little off on how much money they were going to spend, what they were going to do. And it got to where my partner and I were uncomfortable in the room. And have you ever seen Zach Galifianakis Between Two Ferns?
Yes.
Okay. So I had the night before watched the Brad Pitt one where he keeps playing the Friends theme song to Brad Pitt. And It's just absolutely hilarious. So I turned on the TV in our conference room. I was like, hey, let's take a breather. And I pull up YouTube, Zach Galifianakis, and my partner looked at me and was like, what are you doing? I was like, we need some comic relief right now. Our operations person that's outside the conference room heard 4 people dying laughing. Like, I was crying. And, I mean, it's a short video. I turned it off and I was like, let's restart. They're like, thank you for that. And I was like, sometimes these are serious and difficult conversations. We just need to take a step back for a second, reframe our brain. And I was like, you are going to be fine. We just all need to get on the same page. And Matt and I can advise you more than it, and that's going to be on how much money you need to spend, because the numbers, this is the finite amount of money that you have that we know about.
Right.
Unless you have some, windfall, we'll advise you on the range that's the most likely of success or probability that you won't run out of money. Just don't worry, don't argue, just enjoy this time. And it was just such a great, afterwards my business partner was like, God, I was going to kill you.
Hey listeners, you can now text me at 201-581-3682. 3983 to join our community in the suite. After you do that, I'll be lifting you up, inspiring you, and supercharging your life and career with awesome quotes, resources, videos, and tips we learned from our great guests. It couldn't be any easier. Just text 201-581-3983.
Now, one of the things you had said something really important in the beginning of our broadcast. A lot of great women in our industry have been held up and have been sponsored and advocated there by other men. And there are fantastic, fantastic men in our industry. And I know some of your biggest supporters, like the Ron Carson, Aaron Klein, Josh Brown, Alex Shalekian. I wondered if you could just spend a moment, because there are women listening to this episode right now, and regardless if you're in financial services, if you're in the food service industry, if you're in education right now, how did these people kind of come into your life? Do you have a rule of thumb or Nina's tips for, creating stronger networks with men? I see it not only reflected in your business life, but also through your network. Carson Coaching, you got Snappy Kraken, 20 over 10, Asset Map, Riskalyze, Orion. These are big companies headed by some incredible people in our industry, the Eric Clarks of the world. How do you make that bridge to these people?
So I can tell you exactly how I did it. And it's definitely been one of the things that I'm most proud of about myself. So when I was, I guess, earlier in my career, after I'd had my first child, I was newly independent. I still was kind of trying to figure out being independent and what our brand was. And so this was like 2011. I went to a Peak Excel, or what is now Carson Group Coaching. So their Excel conference with my business partner, breast pump and all, first trip leaving the baby.
Wow, that's emotional.
Yeah, well, no, I pretty happily left the baby. I had really bad postpartum, and I needed to get my head back in the game, and I was really drowning and wanted to quit. And my business partner was like, go to this Excel program, you'll meet other independent people, you'll get inspired. It's not about finance necessarily. There is a component of that, but it's about personal growth. And it was very motivating. And I did not meet Ron Carson. I saw the bigger than life man, Ron Carson, on stage. And that conference changed me. It's one of the reasons why I'm still in the industry. If you've never been to an Excel conference, go. I've met some incredible friends there as well over the years. This is my first year, I think, in a decade that I haven't been to an Excel conference.
Yeah, I was on the list to go as well too.
Yeah, bummed that we had to cancel it in May. But so the next conference, I happened to see Ron sitting alone towards the front of the stage. And I think Jeannie was with him then too. But I just walked up to him and I was like, I introduced myself and I was like, I don't mean to bother you. I mean, I remember what I was wearing and I was so nervous, but I was like, I don't want to bother you, but I want you to know kind of my story. And, I really appreciate you putting on this program. It changed my life. It's literally kept me in the business. And so he and I, because he has two girls and he has a son too, but at the time, I think Chelsea, his daughter, I can't remember if she's working at Carson then or not, but we started talking about his young daughters and what they wanted in their careers. And anyways, just kind of hit it off, stayed in touch. And every conference, we would spend time making sure we, had a drink together or something where we could just keep on. And he's just made introductions to me, and we've just had he was one of my first mentors in the business. And then, so also at every Excel conference, one of my favorite people on the planet, Matt Ackerman, who was with Investment News, would always be there covering Excel. And I kept reading in Investment News all the time that there just aren't, or maybe not Investment News, just say the media publications, that there just aren't any young women in the business. And I'm like, I'm right here. And so I introduced myself to Matt Ackerman and said, look, if you ever need a source from a female perspective or a young female perspective, I was like, we are out here. And then so he and I would always stay in touch. And so those two people have been, and then so Josh Brown, I retweeted something that he posted and added him. I actually didn't know Josh at all. And then he wrote me a direct message. We got on a call that afternoon, and it was about getting women. He was looking to hire Blair, that works for him now, but he was looking to hire more women for his firm and kind of didn't know how to do it. And so I said, hey, we're not unicorns. We are out here, but you just got to find them. And so he and I had a conversation on how to do that and have been good friends since then. Josh and I have a very similar personality too. And so the point of it is to not to be afraid to introduce yourself to these men. They want to support you. They want to bring more women. And it's not just them. I mean, my business partner, we're absolutely from, day one of my biggest advocates and supporters. And there are days where I didn't sleep all night and I'd have to text him and be like, I cannot be at this client meeting at 9 a.m. and look smart. I look exhausted, and I don't want to, I don't ever want our credibility to be challenged. And I've got a sick infant right now. So, having that support system, and these men have made incredible introductions. Josh is the one that called me and asked, he told me I was going to be on CNBC, and I kept saying, no way, Jose, I've never done live TV and I'm not going straight to CNBC. And he said, you are, and I believe you can do it. And, they've all, Aaron Klein, I can spend days, Daniel Crosby, Brian McLaughlin at Red Tail. Some of the names that you see in the partner marketplace, they were the first people I called. And the CEOs, I have their cell phone because they're amazing. And they've always been right there to support me and anybody that I felt like needed it or could be introduced to them. They've been so receptive to. So just don't be afraid to make relationships with men. I'm not a male basher. I'm a female promoter, and those are different. And I see a lot of the male bashing, and it breaks my heart because I would not be where I am today without some of the men we talked about and more. And they're just, unbridled support and promotion of me for absolutely no reason and no gain on their end.
I want to thank you very much for that, because that is one of the most incredible pieces of information and insights from our discussion today, is not to be afraid of introducing yourself. Because as you look at Nina O'Neill and the incredible network that she has built personally and professionally, the leaders who you just mentioned, they will hold out a hand, not just to the Nina O'Neills of the world, but even the Tina Powells of the world. And there's more and more and more, right? They have helped us tremendously. Every single person that you mentioned on this list, I'll give you my Ron Carson story, or one of the latest things. We had Terry Shepard on the podcast.
It was amazing. Yes.
Thank you.
It was so amazing.
The hard part was, or the problem was, Terry was she's just an amazing leader. She's humble, she's solid, she's intentional, and she's really caring. And that day, the lawnmower guy, the landscapers just were out there in the same way like it is today. And so there were part of that recording where the sound was not as high quality as it could have been because of the distractions outside. And at one point it got so bad, I had my mother listen to the broadcast, and I was so paranoid. And she's like, well, just go with it. Just go with it. So I said, okay, fine, great. Terry's broadcast launches, and then I get a Twitter message from Ron Carson, and my heart sank. And I said, oh my God, I thought the worst. I was so afraid that he was going to come and say, wow, you could have done a little better on that audio there, Tina. And instead he had just thanks and gratitude for Terry's broadcast, and the fact that he just even took a few minutes of his time just to acknowledge that and compliment that episode, even though it does, again, like today, has the lawnmower in the background. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So really great.
I'm not surprised at all. He's just such a supporter. He's just got such an awesome attitude all the time that, his positive, and I've always called it his infectious energy. Like you being around him, you get some of that. And he's someone that will always take time out of his incredibly busy schedule, just check in with you.
And like you said, Josh Brown, I can see the similarities. I saw Josh Brown's presentation, which was phenomenal at Orion, and there you were on his slides, which I thought was great. So I think it's a perfect segue to talk about Josh, and he's been fantastic. Here's a book that's coming out, Nina, edited by Josh Brown and Brian Portnoy, and illustrated by Carl Richards. Again, another great person. How I Invest My Money. Financial experts reveal how they save, spend, and invest. And I know that November 17th, it's coming around the corner. Talk to us about the book. This is so exciting.
I'm glad I get to talk about Brian Portnoy. He's also been just an incredible supporter. And so he and Josh came up with this idea that, financial professional. So I think Josh actually made the comment that he had been interviewed a million times and he was on, all these media outlets, but he'd never been asked how he invests his money. It's always how he invests just money. And so Brian reached out to me and said, hey, can you get on a call real quick? We get on a call, and he told me about the idea. And I was like, I think that's an incredible idea. I was like, I might in a client meeting say, oh yeah, I do the same with my 529 plan for my kids, but I've never had anybody ask me how I invest my money and what I do. And, or I might comment, yeah, I use this similar strategy we're in the same stage of our life and this makes sense for us, but never been specifically asked. So I was like, this is really interesting. And he said, well, will you? But he said that the ask from the contributors, and he said they were curating their list of people, was that it would be very personal too, that it's not I buy MCLOX for, $5,000 a month or invest $5,000. It's really talking about, and everybody kind of wrote their different story, but they asked it to be a lot more, personal and not just kind of the sterile money message, that it have a little more of the why behind or your story with your relationship with money. And so, but it had to be condensed to a certain amount of space and stuff. So I did it, submitted it very late. I wrote it during the pandemic in May, and Brian kept asking me for it. It was really hard to do. I probably still didn't go as personal as I probably could have, just because it was something that I had really never talked about. Even though I talk about money every single day, it was weird to talk about my own experience, because I do have a very personal and specific reason why I do this job and why,
Can we talk about it here in the suite for a minute?
Yeah, we can. So
we'd love to hear, Nina.
Yeah, and I will say I'm very proud. I almost fell out of my chair last night when I happened to see Josh's post, and then I texted him. I was like, is this right? But as of last night, I don't know today's standing, it was the number 8 bestseller for Amazon in the world, and it's not even released yet. So we're in pre-order, and I just got my own first copy this week. So I've had the PDF version, and I've seen some of the pre-edits, but this is the final version. And then we'll also have it on Kindle and Audible. So there's the audio version. But yeah, so my parents divorced when I was, I think, 10 or 11. And my mom had not really worked. And she suddenly found herself with 3 little girls. And I don't even think she had a checking account. Or if she did, she was not managing the household from a bill standpoint. And I kind of saw that in her real struggle with getting her feet on the ground financially. She worked 3 jobs.
Oh, wow.
My dad is a business owner, and I saw cash flow on his side always be, for years, cash flow was just always something he had to manage through, and business cycles. And then both of my grandfathers were business owners, and both of my grandmothers worked pretty much their whole lives, which is interesting. But my grandfathers also, it was just, cash flow. And one grandfather from the time, but almost before, and you sent me a very sweet card about this, but he passed away recently. But as I was learning to read, when I was 5 or 6 years old, he was teaching me to read ticker symbols in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And he had boy or grandsons, but I took an interest in it. And I'm sure he did the same thing with them, but I really gravitated to it. And then by high school, he and I had this E-Trade account that we traded. And I just had an interest in the markets, but I was an English major, creative writing minor. I don't like math, and I felt very unconfident in my abilities to work in finance and never thought that that would be a path. So I've always called myself the accidental advisor. So then this is kind of, some of that is not in the book, but that's just kind of some of the more personal. And then when I was in high school, right before I went to college, my grandfather suddenly died. The other grandfather that had really helped raise me suddenly died of a massive heart attack overnight.
Oh boy.
And our world was, I mean, it was like fire, sell the business,
Whew.
sell the house. My grandmother was just completely, I mean, we were all shocked.
Stunned. And
then 2 weeks later, I had to go off to college. And then I had another aunt. Her husband had a major car accident. She had not been working. And then that was really tragic for them. And then kind of she was suddenly single mother with a 2-year-old. And then my other aunt, uncle passed away unexpectedly. And she was suddenly single mother. So I just watched so many women in my family over years in different situations be suddenly in a state of having to manage finances and grief. And those are two very difficult things. And you don't want to have to deal with learning all these new things, and it's complicated and emotional money. And then you're in grief, whether divorce, death, whatever it is. And so I just vowed very early on that I would be financially independent no matter what. That was my agenda for my life. That was a huge thing for me. But I also wanted financial flexibility. I didn't want to have, I wanted to still do a job that I loved, but that provided for me. And wanted to be financially stable. Well, then I would live to my early 20s in New York City and spent every dollar that I made. And,
of course.
Yeah. And so I learned a lot through that. Yeah, I learned a lot through that. And then when I started working in finance, when I was 23 or 24, I really started to turn my financial life around and get a better grasp of personal finance, and loved it, and kind of accidentally fell into this great job as financial advisor. But in the way that I manage my money, and this is something when Carl Richards, he illustrated mine, and I love my illustration, but he and Josh were discussing the book, and he was talking about with mine is really focused on past experiences shaping my current situation, while I'm also projecting for a future. So I have to spend money right now because I'm investing in my kids' education. They go to private school. I'm investing their experience playing sports with all-star team and these baseball programs. I want a certain type of home and place for them to grow up. But I also can't spend every dollar that we make. There has to be a plan for the future. But while my kids are little, I want to go on vacation with them. I don't want to wait till I'm 65 to take do the cool stuff, the bucket. So my bucket list will be lifelong. And I don't think I'll probably ever truly retire where I'm not doing anything. But I really struggle with a balance of what do I need to invest in today that gets me to where I need to be tomorrow, but also how do I have some mindful spending on experiences and things with my children and my family, and with myself. I do believe in doing things for yourself. I like getting my hair done.
I do too.
Yeah.
I had a 7-month quarantine, and then all of a sudden I showed up at the salon and I walked out a different person. It was a great feeling.
I know the feeling. Yeah. But younger, when I was a younger mom in my early 30s with little kids.
Yeah.
It was when I needed to, and I didn't, but I learned the lesson the hard way. I should have invested a lot more time and money in myself.
Right.
And you got to take care of mama so she can take care of everybody else. And I skipped that step. I just took care of everybody else and ran myself pretty ragged, and it caused some unfortunate repercussions that, with relationships and things that I regret about time with my kids. And I think it's important now to recognize my limits, and when I need to take some time for me or spend some time on me. This book was an interesting reflection on, how I have thought about money, and then how to put that on a page where I'm comfortable with everybody knowing some of these things and my personal experiences. But it's a beautiful book. The contributors have really, they're people that you would have seen most of their contribution to the industry in multiple ways, but a lot of them are really great writers that are already well respected in that regard. And so it was truly an honor when Brian asked me to be a part of it and talking with Josh and Brian about it and having Carl Richards illustrate it. I mean, it's just completely surreal. And
Oh,
I'm
sure.
really, really proud of the project because I think everybody was very brave in what they shared. And it's also some really good advice. I mean, I've read some of the other people's and been like, that's a really interesting approach. Like Brian Portnoy's, he was the first one I read. He has a very interesting approach to investing, and it's something that I hadn't, I don't want to give it away, but some of the things that he does invest in or his philosophies on money are very different than mine, but I respect and have really not thought about them in the way that he does. So it's if you haven't ordered it out there, then I do think it's a great, not just because I have a chapter in it, but it's a really great insight into some of the financial minds and how they think about their own money. So it's been a treat to read.
So here's what we're going to do in the suite, ladies and gentlemen. So the book is called, again, How I Invest My Money. Financial experts reveal how they save, spend, and invest. And so what In the Suite is going to do is we're going to give away 3 complimentary copies. However, with that said, in service to your episode, here's what you're going to do. So my email is tina@csuitesocialmedia.com. The first 3 women who write in to me via email, and here's the clinch. You have to introduce yourself to someone new. You have to introduce yourself to a male advocate, a male sponsor, someone either through email, through Zoom, through coffee. I want you to put yourself out there. So you can apply for the free copy. Again, we're going to give away 3 copies to the first 3 women who have actually made an introduction, a cold introduction to somebody in their industry, somebody that they deeply respect, a thought leader. Come back to me on email with that story, and I will send you a copy of the book and wrap it up with a bow.
And if you want to send them to me, I will autograph them and then send them to the winners if you want with a little note.
Yes.
I don't know if my autograph matters, but I'm in there.
Yes. You know what? You leave us that's going to be an indelible mark on a lot of the important concepts that we talked about today, which were very, very real. And you gave it to us straight. And right now, we're all in this together. We're all here to support one another and reach out to people that you trust, that you deeply respect. And it's okay to have a conversation and say that, hey, life right now is a little difficult for me. I wish that I would have had more of those conversations with people in the industry. I think that I was very afraid. Now I'm ready to just throw it all out there. And that vulnerability takes practice. But you remind us, Nina, how that when you do put it out there, that vulnerability and just being real, how that could actually attract the right people into your life that can help you move closer, right? Get better, improve, and make the most of your career.
Well, this has been such a treat. I'm really grateful for you having me on here today.
Well, we're really excited. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you and also to join the Female Advisor Network?
Joining the Female Advisor Network, go to femaleadvisornetwork.org and you can look more about the membership benefits. There's a lot more than we had time to talk about. You just click join and then it'll be all automated from there and you'll get your member gift pretty soon after you join and you can start to get involved immediately. And then as far as the best way to reach me, you can follow me at NO'Neil510 on Twitter. You can friend me on LinkedIn. Those are probably the best 2 as far as social. And then Female Advisor Network has Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram and it's just at Female Advisor Network. I have a website, archerinvestmentmanagement.com.
Great. Okay. We'll put all this in the show notes. Again, Nina, you've been such an incredible inspiration. Thank you for sharing your personal journey into the field of financial services. I think a lot of women can relate to that. I certainly can relate to that too, because the picture growing up was quite different. And a lot of times we as women, we want to solve for that. And so what a great field, what a great industry this is, ladies. So a question that we like to end with is that, a lot of us have had to call on that superpower, right? And be bold and be courageous, and at a time when it's needed. When you're on CNBC is a perfect example. And I saw you on CNBC, you were flawless.
Oh, thank you. It was very sweet.
Do you have a mantra, a physical object, a ritual or practice that, really helps to channel that energy and to bring your best self in the suite?
Well, wine when I can. But now I have a friend of mine when I first got in the business, and he always said, "Eye on the prize." And that's in my head a lot. It's just eye on the prize, and knowing that this is an industry that takes patience to build your practice, to know that you're growing. It might not always be as fast as you want it to be, but just kind of always eye on the prize, but define what success is to you, and then just take measured steps to get there.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. Eye on the prize. Well, thank you so much, Nina O'Neill. And congratulations again on all your success, continued good health, prosperity, fantastic news about the book. Really, congratulations. I'm really excited for our little challenge here.
You're listening to In the Suite, a podcast that shares amazing stories of women in business and the financial services and the wealth management industry. Our producers are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirschhorn. Our editor-at-large is Kevin Hirschhorn. Our content writers are Carmen Varner and Tina Powell. Our research and technical assistants are Rachel Powell and Kimmy Rice. In the Suite podcast is sponsored by C-Suite Social Media, a digital marketing and social media agency for C-Suite leaders and companies in finance and technology. You can visit csuitesocialmedia.com to learn more. And thank you so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite podcast. We are so grateful to you. We've got listeners in 441 cities and 29 countries. This podcast was inspired by you ladies. Please let us know how you enjoyed this episode with Nina O'Neill, and share your thoughts on LinkedIn and Twitter, #InTheSuite. I would love it, and it would mean so much if you'd left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this amazing episode with Nina. You can connect with her on LinkedIn and Twitter @NoNeil510, and check out Female Advisor Network at femaleadvisornetwork.org. And always, if you would like to share the name of a rock star woman in financial services we should interview in 2021, please send it to me at Tina@C-Suite Social Media, and we'll consider it. Again, thank you so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite.